Let me guess. You've seen it. Some guy on Instagram, built like a Greek statue, jaw like a Roman senator, posts a black and white photo of himself staring into the middle distance. The caption reads, Stoicism, endure, conquer, repeat, 20,000 likes. Or maybe you've seen the TikTok edits. Marcus Aurelius quotes over cinematic slow motion footage. The obstacle is the way. Sigma male music playing underneath. And somewhere in the comments, someone's typing, this is literally ancient wisdom, bro. And here's the thing, I'm not here to mock that. Some of those guys are genuinely curious. Some of them read a few pages of meditations, felt something real, and try to share it. That impulse is good. But what they're sharing is a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. By the time it reaches your feed, what was once a rigorous, systematic philosophy, a full-blown worldview built by some of the sharpest minds in the ancient world, has been compressed into a mood board for emotional suppression. And if you're watching this channel, you're probably already sensing that gap. You're in your 20s. You're showing up to a job, trying to build something, figuring out relationships, figuring out yourself. And you want more than a motivational quote to get you through Tuesday. So here's what we're doing today. We are going back to the source. We're going to look at Stoicism the way its founders, Zeno of Citium Chrysippus, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, actually built it. And I promise you, the real version is stranger, harder, and infinitely more useful than anything you've seen on Instagram, because the real Stoicism isn't an attitude. It's a system, and that system has 3 parts. Part 1, physics, the field. Let's start with the most surprising part. If you ask a Stoic philosopher, what's the most important subject you study? They would not say ethics. They would not say productivity. They would say physics. Now, stay with me. Stoic physics is not particle accelerators and quantum mechanics. When they said physics, they meant something closer to what we might call cosmology or metaphysics today. They meant, what is the nature of reality? What is this universe made of, and how does it work? And here is the Stoic answer in its most essential form. The universe is made of 2 things, matter, passive, formless stuff, and an active principle the Stoics call the logos. Logos is often translated as reason or word, but what they meant was something like the rational, organizing intelligence that structures all of reality. Think of it this way. You look at the solar system, planets orbiting in mathematically precise ellipses. The same laws of gravity that govern a falling apple in your kitchen also govern the orbit of Jupiter. There is a rational structure to all of it. The Stoics called the source of that structure the logos, and they believed it permeated everything. The stars, the seasons, your heartbeat, your capacity for reason. And here is where this gets personally relevant. The Stoics believe that you, your mind, your capacity to reason, are not separate from the logos. You are an expression of it, a fragment of universal reason housed in a human body. That's not a mystical claim. It's a foundational one. It means that when you think clearly, when you reason carefully, when you align your judgment with reality rather than distorting it through fear or ego, you are doing something cosmically appropriate. You are operating in accordance with your deepest nature. The Stoics called this living kata fusin, according to nature. This is why Stoicism, at its core, is not a philosophy of gritting your teeth and suffering in silence. It's a philosophy of alignment. Get your inner world aligned with the rational structure of reality, and everything else, your actions, your relationships, your work, starts to fall into plaque. Part 2, logic, defense. But physics alone doesn't tell you how to live. You need a way to engage with that reality, a tool for testing what's true and what isn't, what's valid reasoning and what's wishful thinking. That's where Stoic logic comes in. The Stoics describe the 3 parts of their philosophy, physics, logic, ethics, with a brilliant metaphor. Philosophy is like a fertile field. Physics is the soil. Ethics is the fruit. And logic? Logic is a fence. The fence keeps the animals out. It protects the field. Without it, everything you plant, all your values, all your ambitions gets trampled. And here is where Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, gave us one of the most elegant illustrations in all of philosophy. He held out his hand, fingers fully spread, palm open. He said, This is how a presentation appears to the mind: open, undefined, raw. Then he curled his fingers slightly. This is assent. When you begin to accept that presentation as real. Then he made a fist. This is comprehension, catalepsis. When you firmly grasp what is actually true. And then, this is the key move. He brought his other hand over and clasped the fist tightly. Two hands together. This, he said, is knowledge. This is wisdom. This is the grip of the sage on reality. Let that image sit with you for a moment, because this is what Stoic logic is about. Most of us walk around with our hands wide open. We let every passing thought, every social media notification, every offhand comment from a coworker crash into our mind unchecked. We assent to things without examining them. We believe things that feel true without testing them. Stoic logic is a practice of slowing down that process, of asking, every time something appears to your mind, a belief, an impression, a fear, is this actually true? Can I actually verify this? Or am I just reacting? In your daily life, this sounds like, my coworker didn't say hi this morning. Your unreflective mind immediately presents a story. He hates me. I messed something up. Everyone in the office thinks I'm failing. Stoic logic says, slow down. What are the actual facts? What are you adding on top of the facts with your own anxiety? That gap between what actually happened and the story you tell yourself about it is exactly where Stoic logic operates. And learning to work in that gap is one of the most practically powerful mental skills you can develop. Arrive at the fruit of the field. Ethics. This is what the Stoics believed you are actually here to do. Live virtuously. And before you roll your eyes, because virtue sounds like something your grandmother embroidered on a pillow, let's be precise about what they meant. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues, 4 fundamental qualities that constitute a fully functioning, fully rational human being. And here's the thing. These aren't personality traits you either have or don't. They are skills. They are capacities you develop through deliberate practice over time. The first is prudence, sometimes translated as practical wisdom. The Greek word is phronesis. This is the ability to recognize what the right course of action is in a given situation, not in the abstract, not in a philosophy seminar, right now in front of you, with incomplete information and competing pressures. Think about a moment at work when you had to navigate a situation that required judgment, not just rule following. Someone on your team is underperforming. Your manager is asking for a report. You have information that could help or hurt people depending on how you frame it. What do you say? Prudence is the virtue that answers that question. It's the integration of knowledge, experience, and good values into real-time decision-making. The second virtue is justice. And again, let's be precise. Stoic justice isn't about courts and legal systems. It's about your obligations to other people. It's the recognition that you are not an isolated individual. You are embedded in a web of relationships, your family, your colleagues, your community, your society. Justice is the virtue of fulfilling your role within that web faithfully and fairly. In practical terms, justice is showing up when a friend is going through something hard, even when you're tired. It's not taking credit for a colleague's work. It's being honest with someone even when the truth is inconvenient for you. It's living as though other people's well-being genuinely matters, because the Stoics believed it does. The third virtue is temperance, moderation, self-regulation, the ability to experience desire, pleasure, anger, fear, and not be controlled by any of them. This is probably the virtue most people associate with Stoicism, and it is legitimately central. But here's what often gets lost. Temperance is not the elimination of feeling. It's the governance of feeling. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to feel frustrated. You're allowed to be attracted to someone, to want a promotion, to feel disappointed when things don't go your way. Temperance just means those feelings don't get to drive the car. They're passengers. You're driving. The fourth virtue is courage. And this one cuts deeper than physical bravery. Stoic courage is the willingness to act rightly even when it's costly, even when the right path is the harder path, even when you're afraid of what people will think, afraid of failing, afraid of being alone. The Stoics observe that fear, specifically the fear of pain, embarrassment, loss, and death, is the primary engine behind most of our moral failures. We know what the right thing to do is. We just can't make ourselves do it because we're afraid of something. Courage is a virtue that faces that fear and acts anyway. Visual CUE, simple 4-panel graphic. Each panel shows one virtue label and a single modern scenario. Prudence, navigating a difficult conversation at work. Justice, showing up for a friend. Temperance, not sending the angry text. Courage, speaking the truth at a cost. The Stoic Sage, your North Star. Now, here's where the Stoics introduce a concept that is, and I want to be honest with you about this, genuinely strange. Even within the Stoic tradition, it was controversial. They called it the Sophos, the sage. The Stoic sage is a perfect human being, someone who has achieved complete wisdom, complete virtue, complete mastery over their own mind. They never make an error in judgment. Their desires are always perfectly aligned with reason. Their emotional responses are always appropriate to reality. They are, in the Stoic phrase, a king even in chains, meaning nothing external can take away their inner freedom. Now, the Stoics themselves acknowledge that the sage probably doesn't exist. Chrysippus, one of the great systematizers of the school, supposedly said that a sage arises perhaps once every 500 years, if at all. The Stoic sage is not a person you're supposed to become. It's a direction you're supposed to move toward. Think of it like the North Star. Sailors used Polaris to navigate not because they were trying to land on it, but because it gave them a fixed reference point. When everything around you is shifting, the waves, the weather, your mood, your circumstances, you look up and say, am I still pointing in the right direction? The sage is your North Star. When you're about to say something in anger, you ask, would the sage say this? When you're tempted to cut a corner, to be dishonest for a small gain, to let fear make a decision for you, would the sage do this? Not because you expect to be perfect, but because the question itself realigns your attention with what actually matters. The Stoics also gave us a concept closely related to the sage. They distinguish between passions in the negative sense, meaning disruptive, irrational emotional reactions, and eupathii, which we might translate as good emotions. Not all emotion is bad in Stoicism. What they oppose was being swept away, being controlled. The sage feels what the moment genuinely calls for, and nothing more, nothing less. In practical terms, this matters enormously. It means Stoicism isn't asking you to become a robot. It's asking you to stop letting anxiety, ego, lust for validation, or fear of rejection make your important decisions. Those impulses can be passengers. Reason drives. Okay, so now we have the whole system laid out. The field, the fence, the fruit, the logos, logic, and the 4 virtues. The North Star, the sage. But I want to spend this final section on the one Stoic idea that, in my view, is the single most immediately applicable concept in the entire tradition. And it comes from a former slave who later became one of the most famous philosophers in Rome. His name was Epictetus. Epictetus opened his handbook, the Enchiridion, with a statement that is probably the most important sentence in all of Stoic literature. I'll paraphrase it this way. This is the dichotomy of control. And it sounds simple until you actually try to live it. At work, let's get concrete. You're in a job right now. You want to do well. You want to be recognized. You want to move forward. And here is where most people get tangled up. They put enormous energy into things they cannot directly control and neglect the things they absolutely can. Think about job performance versus getting a promotion. Your performance, how hard you work, how clearly you think, how honestly you communicate, how well you execute. That is up to you. That is entirely within your zone of control. The Stoics would say, pour yourself into this. Treat it as an act of virtue in itself, not because it guarantees the outcome you want, but because it is the right way to work. Getting a promotion? Not entirely up to you. It depends on your manager's preferences, the company's budget, office politics, timing, who else applied. You can influence it. You should influence it. Advocate for yourself, build relationships, demonstrate your value, but you cannot control it. And if you're measuring your self-worth, your sense of progress, your emotional stability on whether or not the promotion comes through, you're just handed your peace of mind to a process you don't fully control. The Stoic move is this. Identify every single thing you can do to perform at your best and position yourself well. Then do all those things. and then release your grip on the outcome. Not because you don't care. You absolutely care. But because caring about the outcome beyond a certain point doesn't improve it. It just corrodes you. This is not passivity. It's not giving up. It's directing your energy with precision. You're not scattering it across things you can't change. You're concentrating on the exact place where you have real leverage. Your own effort, your own judgment, your own character. In dating and relationships. Now, let's go somewhere that probably hits even closer to home. You're single, and navigating the whole landscape of dating and relationships in your mid to late 20s can feel like one long exercise in not knowing what the rules are. Here's how the dichotomy of control applies. Your character, who you are, how you treat people, what kind of man you're becoming, is entirely up to you. Your values, your integrity, your emotional honesty, your ability to show up as a full and present human being in a relationship, all of that is in your hands. The Stoics would say, develop this with absolute seriousness, not as a dating strategy, as a life strategy. Your relationship status, whether you are currently in a relationship, whether a specific person you're interested in is interested back, whether things work out with someone you care about, not entirely up to you. You can absolutely take action. Ask someone out. Be present. Be genuine. Communicate clearly. These things matter enormously, but the outcome is not in your full control. And here is where so much modern dating advice goes subtly wrong. It tries to give you control over outcomes you can't have. It treats attraction and connection as things to be engineered through technique. And when the technique doesn't work, you end up feeling like a failure. The Stoic reframe is, your job is not to guarantee a particular person falls for you. Your job is to show up as your best self, to engage honestly, to care genuinely, and then to hold the outcome loosely. Because a person either resonates with who you actually are or they don't. And forcing that process doesn't create connection. It creates a performance. And you can't build a real relationship on a performance. Epictetus put it bluntly. He said that if someone is sick, a good person wishes them to recover, but doesn't demand it as the price of their own peace. In the same way, you can deeply want a relationship to work out, can invest in it fully, and still not make your entire psychological well-being conditional on its success. That's not coldness. That's the deepest form of self-respect. You're saying, I will give this my full effort and full heart, but I will not destroy myself if it doesn't go the way I hope, because my peace is mine, my character is mine, and those things endure regardless of the outcome. So let's zoom back out to the full picture. Stoicism is not a collection of quotes. It is a system, an interconnected, mutually reinforcing architecture of ideas. Physics tells you what kind of universe you live in. One governed by rational structure, one in which your own capacity for reason is not a lucky accident, but a fundamental feature of what you are. Logic gives you the tools to engage with that universe honestly, to examine your own impressions, to reject the stories you tell yourself that aren't true, to maintain a firm grip on reality rather than a comfortable hallucination. Ethics gives you the direction toward the four virtues: prudence in your decisions, justice in your relationships, temperance in your desires, courage in your choices. And the Stoic sage gives you a North Star, not a standard perfection to be crushed by, but a direction to orient toward. And the dichotomy of control gives you the practical tool to navigate all of it day by day. Focus your energy on what is genuinely yours, your judgment, your effort, your character, your response. Let go, not in defeat, but in wisdom, of what is not yours to control. Here's the thing about being in your 20s. You are at the beginning of the long game. The decisions you make now about who you're going to be, how you think, what you value, how you treat people, how you respond to setbacks, those decisions compound. They build on each other. A man who starts practicing these things at 25 has a different life at 35 than a man who didn't. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be the sage. You just need to be a little more aligned today than you were yesterday. A little more honest, a little more courageous, a little more focused on what's actually in your hands. That's it. That's the whole philosophy. Not endure and conquer, not Sigma male grind set, not cold showers as a substitute for self-awareness. A system, a practice, a life. If you want to go deeper, The best primary sources are Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which is essentially his private Stoic journal, and Epictetus's Enchiridion, which is short and absolutely relentless. For a modern companion, Pierre Hadot's philosophy as a way of life is the most serious scholarly treatment of what these ideas actually meant in practice. And if you found this useful, subscribe, because next week we're going deeper into one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of ancient philosophy, the Stoic theory of fate, and what it means to love your fate without being passive about your life. See you then.